It's May 1st, 2025, so time for another monthly update video, and I've got some pretty big stuff ahead to tell you about and some cool stuff that happened in April. I always like to begin by highlighting three big things. So, big thing number one, and I'll talk more about this in the May section, we've got a new 1 day intensive seminar coming up on May 31st. We're going to go through the entirety of Friedrich Nietzsche's short but dense, rich work, The Genealogy of Morals. So, if you're interested in that, you can find the link below, and it's going to be a great activity together, great learning opportunity. So talk more about that in just a bit. Big thing number two, something else that I've been, thinking about for quite a while. So as many of you know, I have a Substack where I do a lot of my writing, and I've been kicking around a kind of advice, what should we call it, column called something like Letters to a Young Philosopher. And I know that that idea is already out there, so I probably will call it something else. But it's going to be drawing on my years of experience and reflections on what it is to do and study philosophy. So I'll have that coming up, and that is going to be just for paid subscribers, as sort of a way of giving back to those who support my work. I'll probably end up bundling the essays together later on into something like a book down the line. The third big thing, and this is very recent news, is that, as many of you know, I've been connected with this volunteer organization, Almost Home Cat Rescue, MKE, for close to 2 years at this point as a volunteer. And there was a call for people to step up and take a board position. As the vice president, I put my name in the hat, and I am now the new vice president of Almost Home Cat Rescue, where I'll be going later on today. So that's kind of a cool thing that's happening as well. So you're going to see a lot more posts probably about it as I take on more responsibilities. So those are my three big things. Let's talk about April. April was a busy month. We always have our scheduled events like the, monthly Ask Me Anything session. We did Worlds of Speculative Fiction, focusing on a series that I particularly like, and actually my dad and I chat about because he's reading them as well, Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. So we did books 5 through 8 of that. Very, very long series. We're just scratching the surface. Scott Terulli and I got together with some of our interlocutors for a great classic metal class on the question, well, what exactly was speed metal? Something that we lived through the era of, but nobody ever clearly defined. And then I was going to do an understanding anger focused on the cynics, but I got asked by the the staff, let's call them the moderators of Stoicism Reddit, to join in an AMA that Saturday, along with Donald Robertson and Christopher Gill. So that's what I did. So those were the big events for April. It's been a month as well of teaching classes. We're almost done with the semester. So April's a very busy time as students are catching up, and we're, in the last part of the term, marching through all of our stuff. I've also been teaching this class in the Study with Sadler Academy on 6 key Platonic dialogues. That has been a lot of fun. We got some great conversations with the people who are participating in the class. And then one thing that's kind of unique to Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, where I teach, is what's called preview night. And so all of the students, they have to do a senior thesis. And this is a huge, huge project. It's very time consuming and intensive. And so they get gallery space to show off their projects. And every graduating senior is doing this. So I know a lot of these students, and preview night is when their families and we instructors and staff and administrators get to go and see what the students did and interact with them. So it's kind of like a coming of age ceremony in some respects, right? So that was really cool to do. I did a lot of video work, videos of all of these events. I also released a video from the Philosophy and Psychology of Anger conference hosted by the Plato's Academy Center. That was in March. I released it in April. I finished up my video series on Philip K. Dick's novel Ubik. Started a whole set of videos on Plutarch that I shot for one of my classes. And I've been releasing those that are on the work on Tranquility, but I've got some other Plutarch as well coming up. I did a quick takes, one about things that you thought were cool and then people told you they weren't anymore in philosophy and how they're still cool, most likely. We released a Wisdom for Life radio show video. I did a book review on a book that I've had for quite a while and I use in my classes, Misha Cherry's The Case for Rage, which is really quite good. And I even did something that had been brewing for a while about Monty Python and philosophy sketches. So philosophy and popular culture, basically saying, some of these sketches, they're a little bit past expiration date. So yes, we've all heard of Philosopher Football or the Philosopher's Song, but there are some other sketches that are actually quite good. I did a Sadler's Stories video as well, and I've been doing a lot of writing. If you follow me in Substack, you've probably seen that. I also, write regularly for the online magazine, The Stoic, and a few other venues. And I've been releasing exclusive videos for my YouTube channel members and paid Substack subscribers. So you may have seen some of those. I also released a lot of podcast episodes, plenty of Mind and Desire podcast episodes. Those I released first to paid Substack supporters and then to the general public. But I finished up releasing the podcast episodes on Michel de Montaigne's essays. There were quite a few of those. Then I did a whole series on Aquinas, on law, and on a piece by Virginia Held, Feminist Transformations of Moral Theory, that I teach in my ethics classes. And then I began releasing the very first of the new series on Shaler's short work, Resentiment, all of which I'd released to my Patreon supporters in advance, but all of these went out to the general public. So that's what I got up to during April. Lots of other stuff as well, but that's probably the bulk of it. We have quite a few things coming up in the month of May, which is a long month, 31 days, right? And we're making full use of it. So we kick off on the 3rd, which is a Saturday, with our monthly Ask Me Anything session. You can pop in. We'll be streaming live, not just on YouTube, but also on LinkedIn and Facebook live as well. And I'll be there for about an hour and a half. Sometimes I go a little bit longer, answering questions. You can post them ahead of time, but I'll tell you, YouTube scrubs them right before it begins. So, if you're adding them days in advance, they're not going to be there and get answered. So you do want to get in to the session early on, ask your questions, and then, wait to get an answer of some sort. Following that, for Patreon supporters, we'll have a philosophy chat at 2 p.m. Central Time. And, if you want to join in on that, well, that is a perk for my Patreon supporters at a certain level. Then on the 10th, we're going to be returning. this will be the third time that we've gone back to this in Worlds of Speculative Fiction. We'll be returning to Terry Pratchett's Discworld. And this time we are going to look at not the entirety, because I think there's about 11 of them, but a good portion of the novels that have to do with the witches. So we're going to see if we can get to the 6 that are the early ones, and then we'll see. Maybe it might be 5, it might be 6, but I've been reading my way through them and really enjoying them. So that begins with a video premiere at noon Central, and then we pick up with a Zoom video conferencing session after that. On the 14th, if you're here in the Milwaukee area, we will be having at the Frank Weinberg Library at 6 p.m. Philosophers in the Midst of History. Now, this is a reprise of a session that we were supposed to have in February, but we got snowed out. We had a freak snowstorm, so it had to be postponed. We're going to be looking at Diogenes of Sinope, this great Cynic philosopher who's kind of a screw-up, but an interesting one. And so we're going to be looking at him and talking about cynicism and the ancient world in general. On the 18th, we are going to, Scott Trulli and I, now that's a Sunday at noon Central. We're going to have classic metal class. And this time around, we are looking at a particular media form that was really, really important in the 70s and 80s, especially for those of us who are metalheads from back then. Metal magazines. How did they work? Who was writing them? What was the point? And what did they provide to the culture that we know as classic heavy metal? On the 24th, we'll have the Understanding Anger that got pushed from last month. And that kind of dovetails nicely with the Philosophers in the Midst of History, because we're looking at classical cynicism and what it has to say about anger. And so that should be quite interesting. Then on the 31st, so this is something that I talked about as big thing number 1, special seminar beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time. We're going to have 3 90-minute sessions. We're going to go through each of the 3 main parts, call them essays or treatises, of Friedrich Nietzsche's great work on the genealogy of morals. Still one of my favorite works by Nietzsche. It used to be like my absolute favorite. I've, gotten a little bit more broad-minded, you could say, but it's probably his most systematic work. And I think that if you want to understand a lot of his key ideas, that is the text to go to. I have been reading it and talking about it with people, teaching it now for about 25 years. So this is a great opportunity for you to get to study it with me if you want to. And, I'm not saying that I know every single thing about the text there is to know, but I'm not going to steer you wrong. What else do we got going on? Well, the semester is finishing, so I've got to turn in grades next week. I'll probably be pretty busy as students are turning in all of their work, and I'm grading, and I'm dealing with students emailing me with various, reasons why they're behind. But so far, things haven't been too bad that way. As I mentioned, I'm going to start, I'm going to be continuing writing my regular stuff in Substack, as well as doing the exclusive videos and the Mind and Desire podcast. But I'm going to be writing a new set of essays there, and these will be available to paid subscribers in my Substack. And eventually I'll be bundling them into a book. And so it probably won't be called Advice to a Young Philosopher or Letters to a Young Philosopher, playing off of the Rainer Maria Rilke Letters to a Young Poet thing, and, other people like Boulud's Letters to a Young Chef. I'll probably come up with a different name for it, but that's what we're going to call it for the time being, understanding that it's not just for young people, but for people who want to study philosophy and want to know something about the field and may want to be involved in it professionally. I'll be giving my reflections, my experience, some advice that may be helpful for keeping things in mind. I think this can be really valuable for people. So I'm going to be starting that writing project this May. Probably the first one will come out next week. And then I'll be doing a lot of video work as well. I've got some books that are ready to review. Just need to sit down and shoot those videos back there by the bookshelf. I've been promising another self-directed study video for quite a while. I'll get that out this month. We'll have another fake quotes video, I think. Probably some Sadler's stories. People have been asking me about particular things. What about this? What about that? So I'll shoot some of those. Maybe a quick take. I am definitely going to be doing another Sadler's soapbox video as well, because I got something that I want to say about universities that don't handle their money well and whose fault that is and who should pay the price for that. And then plenty more Plutarch core concept videos. I'll be shooting other core concept videos, but those will probably get released in June because, just filling up the slots. We got a lot of Plutarch videos, not only on the work on tranquility, but also on the work, how a person can be conscious of their progress and virtue. And another one that I shot, a set of 5 videos on being a busybody, which is very interesting, right? It's a very specific issue that he's talking about. So I'll be releasing those. Podcast episodes, it's probably for a while going to be more Max Shaler because I've been in the process of converting those videos into Sadler's Lectures podcast episodes. Again, you'll see some more Mind and Desire podcasts out there. And then, once I have the time, those speculative fiction studies videos that I shot recently and released on Philip K. Dick's novel Ubik, okay, it's time to start converting those into podcast episodes. So I'll be doing that towards the end of the month, most likely. So those are the things that are coming up. Obviously, I mentioned about Almost Home. I will be taking on considerably more responsibilities. If you follow, my social media, you're probably used to me posting pictures of the cats at the shelter. I'll be there maybe a little bit more often than I have been, and I'll be, working my way into the position. There's a lot of things that the vice president does. I'm really happy that they're entrusting me with these responsibilities. It's really cool, and it's a really wonderful organization. So, that's what we've got going on this month, and hope that you can make it to the online events. If you're here in the Milwaukee area, check out the Philosophers in the Midst of History thing. I'd be happy to meet with you there, and hope you have a great month ahead, and I'll see you perhaps somewhere down the line in social media, comments on videos, or in some of these online events.